To help answer the questions that the customer flow chart poses, we're going to talk about competition, positioning, pricing, branding, and promotion. These are all the things that will determine whether and how your customer will engage with you. So let's go through these one by one, starting with competition. To understand why someone would want to engage with your solution or not engage, we need to understand what are the current alternatives they're turning to in the absence of your solution. And your competitors might not be that obvious. If there's nothing similar to your idea out there, then the alternative might look a little bit different. So for example, they say the biggest competitor to a certain water brand may not be another water brand. It might be soda or coffee or tea, right? Something else someone might drink. The biggest competitor to streaming services might not be the other streaming services. In addition to those, it's also like sleep or nature or other things that people might do instead of watching a show, right? It's what people might choose instead of you. One of my colleagues even liked to say, your biggest competitor is inertia. You know, people are just used to doing the same thing over and over again. They get used to the status quo. And you're asking them to change. You're asking them to do something different. So you need to make it really easy for them. That's why it's important to understand their alternatives and think about how you can make it as easy as possible and as compelling as possible for them to switch to you, because you're asking them to change. So finding out what alternatives people are turning to tells you what they're looking for. Are they looking to save time, money, inconvenience, distress? What are the current alternatives offering them? As you go, you summarize your results in a simple chart, like this one, comparing the qualities of your idea with the qualities of existing solutions. This brings us to positioning. Ready? So positioning means clarifying your unique selling point. Why people would switch to you instead of what they're already using. How are you going to position yourself with respect to the existing alternatives? So are you going to be the less costly one, the one that's faster or more convenient or more fun? What do people want? How and what's missing? And that's kind of how you can capture their attention. So one way to visualize this is to use a visual positioning matrix like this one to help visualize and determine your positioning compared to others. What do people care about based on your conversations? It could be ease of use, cultural compatibility, time needed, for example. So you might use a more multidimensional visualization like the spider chart. And filling out these matrices isn't a goal in and of itself. You don't have to do it. It's just a tool to help you figure out where you stand with respect to your closest competitors, and also to help you convey that to others because they're going to ask you. Now, let's talk a little bit about pricing. Pricing depends on a couple of different things. First, what the problem you're solving for people is currently costing them. And here they're more likely to be focused on their perception of the short-term immediate cost. Remember that. 2, similarly, their perception of your solution's added value. Again, they'll only be thinking about the short-term immediate benefit. I don't recommend for pricing that you factor in the long-term benefits. These actually usually don't influence most people's willingness to pay. So note that I use the word perception a lot, right? It's really what they think the problem is costing them and what they think your solution is adding value. And that might be different from reality, but you have to find out what they think about it. And this depends partly on how it's conveyed to them and how you communicate your solution to them. That's where articulating your value proposition is important. Are you helping them save time, money, inconvenience, distress? Are you making them happier in some way? Remember, this is a big, lofty societal challenge, but people are focused mostly on their day-to-day lives, and that's where you need to meet them. And when we're talking about pricing, we're talking about the economic buyer, the person who's paying. And remember, in some cases, this is different from the end user. So for pricing, you want to make sure to be answering all these questions about the person who's paying. Now, we've talked about competition, positioning, and pricing. A really important element to think about is branding. A lot of the questions you've been asking about competition, positioning, and pricing are related to how you're going to present yourself to customers and compel them to give your idea a shot. Branding refers to the identity you create around your idea that helps you communicate your unique value proposition. It includes the name you'll choose for whatever solution you're creating, the logo you'll design to represent it, the colors and vibe and website, and just everything you'll use to communicate it. So hippocampus, for example, is just like something fun that calls out to parents and children. They have an actual hippo. It's really colorful. And then their actual centers and the website and brochures and pamphlets and everything have the same colors. So they're trying to convey the message that you can trust us. We're high quality. We're fun. We're engaging. Your kids will learn, right? So branding is really about your messaging, that you're conveying, the vibe that people are getting. It's about how you capture and communicate your value proposition to your customers and convince them about why it's worth switching to from the status quo. And the next thing we'll talk about is promotion. How are you going to get that message to them? What channels will you use? So promotion, this depends a lot on what you find out about where your customers already get their information from. So do they mostly turn to social media? Is it mostly word of mouth? Is it a combination? It's different for every person in every community. I remember one social enterprise found out that people in their community loved calendars, so they would make ads on calendars. I mean, who would have thought? So you just need to answer the question of how people will find out about you in order to communicate your value proposition to them in a way that will get them to switch from current alternatives. So again, it's just talking to people and figuring out where they get their information from. And these elements will help you figure out your distribution, which is where and how your customer will interact with your solution, your potential partners and collaborators. For example, you might end up going through institutions or people they already trust that you could potentially work through, and the resources you need. And a great way for putting this all together to kind of have the seeds of a preliminary business model is a tool called the Business Canvas, which was made by strategizer.com. And you can also use the Social Business Canvas, which is a very similar version made by the SE Lab at Stanford. And these are templates that you can fill out, kind of like what you did in the last module with your team, like brainstorming using Post-its or markers or whatever, or you can do it digitally. It helps you examine the different pieces of the puzzle and what they look like when you put it all together, and then you can step back and see the complete picture. So it asks you to articulate your central value proposition, the key activities and resources needed, potential partners for bringing all these resources together. It specifies your customers, the different customer segments maybe, like the end users, different end users, or potentially the decision makers or economic buyers and other stakeholders, and how you'll reach them. So I love using the Business Canvas. I use it every semester with my students, and I think that once you go through the customer flow chart step by step and start sketching out your diagram, once you ask yourself these questions about competition, pricing, positioning, branding, and promotion, then you will probably be able to start filling out a business canvas. And everything we've talked about in this video is what some people might refer to as your go-to-market plan. Right? So when you talk to people about your idea, there are a lot of details that you need to figure out to answer their questions about how exactly it works. So let's take a deep breath. I know we just went through a lot. I'm going to share one more tool in the next video that will help you evaluate your idea as you continue having these conversations. No idea is perfect. I just want you to find out how people are responding to your solution and which aspects it seems will be the most important in making it work.